Some homes in DuPage County are selling rather quickly, but others are sitting. And that's what a lot of sellers are getting confused about right now because they're looking around and they're seeing both things happen at the same time. One home gets an offer quickly, and another home, maybe even the same town, price range, similar features, well, it sits longer than expected. So the natural question is why? Why does one home sell while another home sits? And most importantly, if you're thinking about selling, how do you make sure that you're not the one that the buyers skip? That's what I want to talk to you about today, because the market hasn't stopped. Buyers didn't disappear, but they have changed. And when buyers change, sellers have to adjust. Not panic, not give the house away, not assume that everything's wrong, but adjust. Because the strategy that worked when buyers had almost no options is not the same strategy that works when buyers have more choice. And that's the real difference in the market right now. It's not that every home is hard to sell, it's that buyers are comparing more. They're pausing more. They're asking better questions. And they may be quicker to skip over a home if the price, presentation, or first impression doesn't line up. So today I want to walk you through why some homes are selling fast and why others are sitting, and what you can do before listing to put yourself in the best position. Not with pressure, not with scare tactics, with a clear understanding of how buyers are making decisions right now. I'm John McGleam with John Greene Realtor, and for nearly a decade I've helped buyers and sellers right here in DuPage and the surrounding counties. Let's get into it. The first thing to understand is that there's no such thing as the DuPage market as just one big, huge market. That's how some people talk about it, but that's not really how buyers experience it. A buyer is not shopping all of DuPage County as one big category. They're usually shopping a certain price range, a type of home, a commute pattern, a school district, a certain lifestyle, and monthly payment. So when it says homes are selling fast, that may be true for them, but the real question is which homes? In what price range, in what condition, in which location, with what competition, and at what price. Because two sellers in the same general market can have two different experiences. One seller may list a home that's priced correctly, photographs well with professional level photography, shows cleanly, has a strong online presentation, marketed appropriately, and competes well against other homes that are available. That home may get actively gone quickly. Another seller may have a perfectly good home, but the price is a little ambitious. The photos aren't as strong. The home needs some updates. And there are 3 other homes nearby that look a lot better online. That home may sit. It's not because that house is bad. It's often because the buyer has choices. And when the buyers have choices, they compare. And that's the part some sellers are not adjusting to. For a while, many sellers got used to a market where almost every decent home got attention. Sometimes very quickly, sometimes with multiple offers. Sometimes buyers had to make decisions before they even felt ready. That environment created a lot of seller confidence, and understandably so. But in the market today, it's much more selective. Again, not bad, selective. And selective buyers behave differently. They scroll differently. They schedule showings differently. They react to price differently. And they're more willing to wait for the right fit. And here's the part that can be frustrating for sellers. A buyer may decide not to see your home before they even step inside. That decision may happen on their phone in 10 seconds, maybe less. So if the home doesn't feel right online, they may never take it to the front door. That's why pricing, photographs, condition, positioning, marketing your home, all of these things matter right now because the first showing isn't a physical showing. The first showing is the listing itself. I think one of the biggest misunderstandings in the market is when a home sits, it's easy to say there are no buyers. But usually that's not the full story. In many cases, there are buyers. They're just more careful than they were a few years ago. And there's good reason for that. Higher mortgage payments change monthly payments. Property taxes matter. Insurance costs matter. Maintenance costs matter. Buyers are not asking, can I buy the house? They're asking, does this house make sense for my life? Does this monthly payment feel comfortable? Are there repairs coming? Is there another home that gives me more value? Do I need to move on or can I wait? That changes everything. Because when buyers feel stretched financially, they become more sensitive to anything that feels off. A price that feels high feels much higher when the monthly payment is already uncomfortable. A dated kitchen feels more expensive. When the buyer's already thinking about closing costs, repairs, taxes, and moving expenses, that makes a difference. A poor first impression matters more when there are other homes to compare it to. And that's why some sellers are surprised. They may say, but buyers loved homes like this 2 years ago. And that may be true. But buyers 2 years ago were often operating under a different set of conditions, different rates, inventory, urgency, competition. But today's buyer is not always gone. They're just more cautious. And cautious buyers need more reasons to say yes. They need to feel like the home is well positioned. They need to feel value, and they need for that to make sense. They need the listing to create confidence. If it doesn't, they move on. So here's the real question for sellers right now. Are you giving buyers a reason to choose your home? Or are you giving them a reason to keep scrolling? That is the difference. And that difference can show up very quickly. The first week on market is incredibly important, not because a home can't sell later, it absolutely can, but because the first week is generally when your listing gets the most attention. That's when it's new. That's when buyers who've been waiting get notified. That's when agents send it out. That's when people are curious. That's when the listing has the best chance to make a strong first impression. So if a home launches poorly, that can create a problem. And by poorly, I don't mean something dramatic happened. Usually it's subtle. The price is slightly too high. The photos don't show the home well. The description doesn't position the property clearly. The home doesn't feel prepared. The showing availability is limited. The competition looks stronger. Any one of these can reduce momentum. And momentum matters. Because once a listing sits, buyers ask different questions. At first, they may ask, should we see this? But after a little time passes, they may be asking, why is this still available? And that is a very different question. And it's not always fair. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with the home, but buyers don't know that. They only see days on market. They see price. They see photos. They see what else is available. Then they fill in the blanks. And that's why sellers want to get the launch right. The goal is not to be on the market. The goal is to enter the market in a way that makes buyers take you seriously right away. And that means pricing based on today's competition. Not what sold last year, not what the neighbor got in a different market, not what you need or hope to get. The market doesn't respond to what we want. It responds to value. And value is always judged in a comparison. That's why two homes can look very similar on paper, but perform very differently online. Because buyers are not just buying a house, they're choosing between options. And when they choose between options, the best positioned home wins. Not always the cheapest home, not always the newest home, it's the best positioned home. When sellers hear the word pricing, it can sound simple. Pick a number, put the home on the market, see what happens. But pricing is not just a number, pricing is a message. It tells buyers how to interpret the rest of the home. If the home is priced well, buyers may look at small flaws and say, okay, that makes sense. But if it's priced too high, those same small flaws can feel much bigger. The carpet feels older, the kitchen feels more dated, the yard feels smaller, the location feels less convenient. Buyers start looking for reasons to justify why the price doesn't feel right. That's what overpricing does. It changes the way the buyers see the home. And the tricky part is sellers often think, well, they can always come down later. And yeah, you can, but the question is, what did you lose while waiting? How many buyers skipped it? How many buyers saw it and decided not to act? How much momentum disappeared? How much did the listing start to feel stale? A price reduction can help, but a price reduction doesn't always recreate the same excitement of a strong launch. That's why the first piece matters so much. It's not about underpricing. It's not about giving away equity. It's about understanding where your home fits in the market, and the buyers are going to be able to see that. This means looking at recent comparable sales, current competition, condition, location, updates, buyer expectations, monthly payment, and the emotional reaction that buyers are going to have when they see this listing. Because buyers don't evaluate homes like a spreadsheet. They react emotionally. They walk in and they think, does this feel right? Do I feel confident? Does this feel worth it? And if the price feels disconnected from the experience, they hesitate. And hesitation is dangerous for a seller because a hesitant buyer usually keeps looking. Here's a simple way to look at it. The right price creates confidence. The wrong price creates questions. And buyers with questions often become buyers who are willing to wait. Now, price is important, but it's not the only thing. Presentation matters too. And what I don't mean is that every home has to be perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect home, and buyers know that. But the home does need to feel well cared for. It needs to photograph well. It needs to be easy to understand online. It needs to show buyers that it's worth their time. Because before someone schedules a showing, they're usually comparing your home to several others. They may be looking at photos on their phone. They may be sitting while at work. They might be scrolling at night. They might be sending links back and forth to someone else in the equation. And in that moment, your home either earns attention or loses it. And that's why small things matter. Bright, clean photos, decluttered rooms, clear surfaces, good lighting, a strong first photo, a thorough listing description, easy showing access, a home that feels ready. These things do not magically make a home worth more than what the market supports. But they can help buyers see value that is already there. And that is what's important because buyers are not asking, What is this home? They're asking, can I see myself there? And that question is emotional, and presentation helps answer that. A home that feels dark, cluttered, or confusing online may get skipped, even if it would show better in person, but that's the problem. You may never get the chance to prove it in person if the online presentation doesn't earn the showing. A lot of sellers think the goal is to impress buyers once they walk through the door, but right now, you may need to impress them before they even schedule a showing. That is the shift, and it's a big one. So what are the homes that sell quickly doing right? Usually it's not one magic thing, it's a combination. They're priced in line with the market, they show well online, they're prepared before the launch, they're easy to tour, they compare well against the competition, and they make buyers feel like waiting could cost them the right opportunity. That last part matters. Because urgency doesn't come from pressure, it comes from value. If the buyer believes the home is priced well, if it shows well, it fits what they need, then they're more likely to act. If they believe the home is overpriced, or if they think something better might appear, they wait. So as a seller, the goal isn't to pressure your buyers, the goal is to remove doubt. That is the whole strategy. Remove doubt about the price, about the condition, about the presentation. Remove doubt about whether the home is worth seeing. The more doubt you remove, the easier it is for buyers to move forward. And that's where preparation matters. Before listing, you want to know, who is the likely buyer? What else are they comparing? What will they notice first? What objections might they have? What repairs or improvements actually matter? What's just noise? Where should the home be priced to create the right reaction? Because the goal isn't to do everything. The goal is to do the right things. Some sellers spend money on improvements that don't really change the buyer behavior. Other sellers ignore small issues that absolutely do change buyer behavior. And that's why the plan matters. Not every home needs the same strategy. A beautiful, updated home needs one strategy. A well-maintained but dated home needs another. A home in a great location but with some condition challenges needs another. A home in a competitive price range still needs another. What is blanket advice can be dangerous. You don't need generic advice. You need a strategy for your specific home in your specific market at this specific moment. Because the market's not asking, is this a nice home? The market's asking, is this the best choice for the money right now? And that is a question buyers are answering. And your listing has to answer it before they move on. Now let's talk about those homes that sit. Because again, it doesn't mean that the home is bad. There are plenty of good homes that sit longer than expected. Usually it's one of the few things that are happening. Number one, its price is ahead of the market. It doesn't mean the seller is unreasonable. It just means the market hasn't moved, or the comps being used don't match what buyers are comparing today. Number two, the home doesn't show well online. The photos may not create interest. The rooms feel smaller than they are. The first image might not be strong. The listing may fail to highlight what actually matters. Number three, the home has condition objections that the buyers are pricing in. They may see updates coming. They may see maintenance. They may like the home, but they're mentally subtracting that from the price. Number four, the competition is stronger. This is a big one. Your home's not judged in isolation. It's judged against everything else the buyer can buy. So even if your home looks good, another may look better with its value. Number five, the listing missed its launch window. The first week may have passed without enough activity. Maybe with a price adjustment, they can come back later. Maybe the presentation was improved after the fact. Those changes can help, but they don't fully recreate the original excitement. And again, this isn't about blame, this is about diagnosis. If a home is sitting, the question is not what's wrong with this house. The better question is, what's preventing buyers from choosing it? That question is more useful because once you identify the friction, then you can decide what to do next. Sometimes the answer is price, other times it's presentation. Sometimes it's access or marketing, but sometimes it's patience because the buyer pool for that home is much smaller. But you need to know the difference. The mistake is assuming that more time alone will solve the problem. Sometimes it will, but sometimes more time just tells buyers that they have more leverage. And that is why sellers need to watch the market response very carefully. So if you're thinking about selling, what's the first thing you do? Well, first, get honest about the competition. Not just the sold homes, but the current competition, because buyers are choosing from that right now. A home that sold 6 months ago matters, especially when pricing, but a home listed down the street today may matter even more to a buyer making a decision this weekend. Second, look at the home through your buyer's eyes. That can be hard because it's your home. You know the memories, the improvements. You know the things that you've loved about it over the years. But buyers are coming in with fresh eyes. They don't know that story yet. They're comparing, calculating. They're noticing things that you may have stopped seeing. Third, prepare for your launch. Don't wait until the home is already on the market to fix the obvious issues. First impressions matter. That doesn't mean you need to remodel everything. Often that's much simpler. You need to clean, declutter, lighten things up, touch things up, repair what creates concern. Make the home easy to understand. Make the strongest features obvious. Fourth, price with a strategy, not based on fear, not based on a guess, not based on hope, price based on how buyers are likely to respond. Fifth, have a plan for feedback. If the home launches and activity is strong, great. If showings are low, that tells us something. If showings are strong, but the offers aren't coming, that tells us something different. If buyers are commenting on the same objection repeatedly, that matters. The market gives feedback. The key is to listen early enough and adjust intelligently. A strong seller strategy is not putting a sign in the yard. It's understanding how buyers think, what they compare, where they hesitate, what gives them confidence to move forward. That is where the advantage is. For DuPage sellers right now, the message is not negative. There still is demand. There's still buyers. There are good homes that can still sell, but the market is less forgiving than when inventory was extremely tight and buyers felt like they had to jump at anything. Today, buyers are much more selective. That means sellers need to be more strategic. The good news is that strategy is within your control. You can't control mortgage rates or every competing home. You can't control what a buyer's budget feels like, but you can control how your home is prepared, priced, presented, how your home is launched, and how the feedback is handled. How you quickly adjust if the market response is not what you expected is important. That's where sellers can still win, not by pretending the market is the same as it was a few years ago and not assuming everything is falling apart, but instead by understanding the market that we're actually in. It's a more selective market, a more comparison-driven market, a market where the best positioned homes still get attention. So if you're thinking about selling, the question simply isn't, what is my home worth? That matters, of course, but the better question is, how will buyers see my home compared to everything else they can buy? That is the real question, because that question determines showings. That question determines urgency. That question determines whether buyers act or wait. And that question is your selling strategy, and that has to have an answer. If you're thinking about selling a DuPage or the surrounding area and you're wondering where your home would fall in today's market, I'd be happy to take a look at it with you. Not with pressure, not with a generic estimate, but with a real conversation about your home, your competition, your timing, and the best way to position it. Because some homes are still selling quickly, others are sitting, and often the difference comes down to the decisions that are made before the home even hits the market. If that would be helpful, reach out to me anytime. I'm John McGleam with John Greene Realtor. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon. Take care, friends.